quickest way to transform any saw that you get, even a budget one, as long as it's resharpenable, is to actually sharpen it. So what I want to do is jump down into the vise here. We're going to do a saw kerf to start off with, and then we'll compare it after we've sharpened to see the difference that it's made to the saw. So I've just got a piece of scrap here. We're going to be cutting into the end grain since this is a rip cut, and that's what a rip cut's used for. And so let's start. So I'm going to establish a cross, and I'm actually just going to establish 2 here, and that's not going to be part of the counting. This is where we're going to do the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So now that we've got that kerf done here, what I'm going to do is put this up into a saw vise, and I'm going to, instead of going through the terms that I have in the past, I'm actually just going to talk you through it on the spot here as I do it, so you can have a very basic understanding of what you're doing. You don't need to go in depth to actually do this, because for the most part you're actually following the pattern that's already on a saw. With it being brand new, the saw cut is normally, or the teeth are normally in the right spot for you to follow. So let's jump back over here to the vise and we'll get started once again. So if you don't have some sort of saw vise, which, like the one I've got here, this makeshift one, the other option you can do is you can just get a piece of wood, cut a line down the middle. It doesn't even have to be straight, and that'll allow you to actually clamp that in your vise and hold your saw so you can sharpen. And the other thing that you're going to want is a triangular saw file. The one here is the Bahco 187052. I like to start at the toe, which is this end. The toe opposite to the handle, just like your foot obviously. Not that your foot has a handle. Now, while in the past I've gone through all the terminology, we don't really need the terminology that much. What you want to do is make sure that your saw plate is sitting relatively flat and that you have it clamped down as far as you can get it down and still get in here with your file. Now, the reprofiling that I'm talking about for this first little section up to here is we're actually just going to come in and we're going to keep our triangular file with one side completely flat, horizontal, and we want to keep our file flat 90 degrees to the saw plate here, and we want to just run straight through like this, keeping the file horizontal and keeping the file 90 degrees with this flat on top to the saw plate. And so one other thing you can do when you want to start this, and this is a good practice if you're not familiar, and that is just to come in with a little bit of Sharpie. Now, what that does, and it's not perfect, and you do end up destroying the Sharpie a little bit doing this. So what we've done is I've just blackened the top of these teeth, so when I bring the file through, I know that I've removed it. Now, one of the viewers on the last video where I was showing you how to reprofile the tooth suggested that you could use metalsmith sort of marking out blue fluid, and that's probably not a bad idea. I think that's a sensible idea, and you can just remove the rest with acetone or something like that afterwards if there's any left. But the Sharpie does work. It's just up to you whether you want to use that as well, so it's another option out there. With the file, we're only pushing in this direction, only straight, so I'm pushing it directly towards the camera. No downward pressure, let the file do the work. Now, I'm just checking to see whether one pass got it. I'm actually going to go for a second pass. Now we're going to do that same set 2 passes on every single tooth from here on out. So I'm just holding the front here just as a guide to try and keep it flat. And I'm only cutting in the forward pass. You might hear that rub a little bit. I'm trying to lift it off the tooth but not lose it. Now, you might not be able to hear this on the camera, but the sound that this makes is kind of a high-pitched squeal. It's a little bit ear-piercing, so you might want to have some headphones in, use some earplugs, something like that. Now you can see here that I'm using the same length stroke. 2 passes, same length, same pressure, and that is so we can evenly wear these teeth, because we don't want to unevenly wear them. So now we're at that 2-inch mark, and we've done them with the file sitting this way straight through. Now what we want to do is actually just allow it to sit in there and match what the tooth actually has. And for the most part, if I look at these, they're a little bit off 90 degrees straight up and down. So that 90 degrees is on this side here. So that flat side we had on the top, we're turning it and keeping that as much to 90 degrees or a little bit off 90 degrees on this side here onto the tooth. And so we're going to be running along with it like this now, right to the end. Now it doesn't matter if it wobbles here or there a little bit, but if you do, you want it to make sure that it's kind of a negative, so back this way. So the front of the cutting tooth, because this is the toe, is actually on this side of the tooth, so it's that side you want to make sure you're working on. Again, 2 passes and the same process. And if you feel like it's not sharpening it quite as well, switch over to another side of your file. Now I just want to clarify, where you put that marker on here, you won't remove it all off the one tooth until you've sharpened on both sides of the tooth, because you'll remove some of it off the front up, and then when you move to the next tooth you'll get the back of the tooth and that will remove the rest of it. You just want to make sure that you're doing the same on every tooth so you don't get them uneven. So what I've done is I've just passed the saw through this block of wood before we do another test to see how fast it works. Just a few times, and the reason being is what it does is, and I haven't mentioned this before, is just running your saw through the wood a few times knocks off any burrs, any swarth that might be left on there that hasn't come off. It just knocks it off just by running it through a piece of wood a few times. And so I highly recommend, before you start using it to do any real joinery, is just run it through a piece of scrap a couple of times after you've sharpened it, and then I find that they work a lot better. And that's just a little point that I haven't really mentioned before, and I had a comment on my last video, so I thought I'd actually mention it today. So let's start and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we're bottomed out. So you can see we've gone from 17 strokes to 12, so it's 5 strokes less, and that means a lot less effort to actually do your sawing, and you're just going to operate the saw a hell of a lot better if you don't have to put as much force into it, because it's just cutting that much faster. And that goes for doing your tenons and just normal cross-cutting, dovetails. Every time the saw actually operates the way you want it, the easier you want it. Less force, because it's sharp, you can actually just let the saw do the work, and that's what you're looking for. And so now, this saw, without doing anything else, has just transformed in its operation just purely by doing a decent sharpen to it. But there you have it, folks. As you can see, it didn't take a lot of time to give this a quick sharpen, and it has transformed the way it operates quite dramatically. There are other things you could do, like adjust the set, and I'm going to do a dedicated video on that, although I've covered it in other videos. I'm going to do a dedicated video on how we can adjust the set on saws, both to increase it and reduce it. So if you like this video, do consider liking and subscribing down below, and while you're down there, do sound off in the comments. And if you'd like to support me a little bit further, please do consider checking me out on Patreon, Instagram, and also here, becoming a member on YouTube if you'd like to support the channel. And if you'd like to see another great video such as this, do check out the video up here where I show you how to reprofile the handle of that same saw that we just sharpened today. Bye for now.